What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe Yanez and I, we are on for our weekly episode. We talk all things fitness, family, life. Gabe, I have a joke for you. And full disclosure, if you have any young listeners listen to this, I'd say below the age of 10, might want to kind of turn down for a second. But I want to get your opinion on this. So Caden comes up to me the other day, and I thought this was, first off, I thought this was hilarious. But it begs the question of, was it appropriate or not? So Caden comes up to me the other day. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I got a joke." I'm like, "All right, what's the joke?" And he's in front of Ashley and Ava too. And he goes, "I saw it on a YouTube short. It's really funny." I was like, "All right, what is it?" He goes, "What has 182 teeth and holds back a monster?"
I don't know.
So what has 182 teeth and holds back a monster? And he goes, "My zipper."
That's really good. Wait. Okay, so I immediately need to know what was Ashley and Ava's reaction?
So I mean, Ava's
you gotta play me the whole scene. So what happens here after that joke?
Ava's like disgusted, right? And she's like, "You're so immature. That's disgusting." And just like walks away.
Okay,
right?
Proper older sister answer. Yeah. Okay, expected.
I'm laughing out loud.
Of course.
Like
I would have been rolling on the floor,
belly laughing, right? And then Ashley's like, she laughed and she's like, "Caden, I need to update your parental controls. You're seeing this kind of stuff." And then Ash and I mean, we got a good laugh. I mean, because it was a good one. You know, like every now and then he'll throw a joke out there that's just like kind of whatever. But this one got me a good laugh. And but it brings up the good question of like, now that he's 11, you know, I remember when I was like 11, 12, like, dude, I remember like there was a lot of stuff going around the class. And like, I don't know. It's just, it breeds the question of like, nowadays our kids, do they have more access to things? Is this an appropriate level of joke for 11-year-old? I don't know. I got a great laugh out of it though, so I wanted to just share it with you.
I mean, it brings up a lot of good topics because it's so funny how, and Charlie's still a little too young for her to even participate in this if she wanted to, but correct me if you think that I'm wrong, but I feel like there's always been this difference that like boys just like have that sense of humor forever, where like they think that like farting and talking about like your penis and whatever is like the funniest thing ever. And it's tough for us as parents because like Shay now is definitely at the point where like, you know, he'll be naked at times at night or like in the bath and he's kind of like figuring stuff out and is like playing with his penis. And it's like, you know, you got to like tell him like, "Hey buddy, like, you know, don't do that," whatever. And sometimes he comes up with some stuff. He's like, he'll say it. He'll be like, "I'm playing with my penis." And it's funny. And you laugh and you know that, you know, anything that you like give attention to or laugh with like a young kid, a toddler.
Yeah, they'll do it more.
He'll like, now he does it all the time. Right. And it's one of those things where like, but how can you not laugh? Like it's ridiculous. It's so funny. They come up with like the wildest stuff. And like, the knee-jerk reaction as a parent is that it's like funny, it's ridiculous. But then at what point do you have to start reeling that stuff in because it's potentially inappropriate for him to like, you know, do it around his sister, do it around grandparents, do it around other people? Like, you know, where do you kind of find that balance? And then, you know, in the later years, you know, once he's 11, I mean, I remember, dude, like once you're like a young boy and in school, like the funniest thing is anything related to like genitals, farting, like whatever, right? Like you'll just, it's literally the funniest thing. And I don't know, in many ways, I think that that's fine and innocent and just funny, but obviously there's always a line that could be crossed. So yeah, man, I mean, I have no solution for it but it is, you know, I think about it when I was a little kid and the things that I thought was funny, but that joke was pretty good. That's a good one.
You know what's funny is that like I said it to somebody else, like a 40-year-old grown ass man, and he's just like, "That's a good one." And then you say it like, you know, a girl's around. She's like, "You're so immature." You know, like Ashley, like, "You're so immature." Because I was saying to someone, we were at a volleyball game yesterday. I was like, "Hey, bro, I got a good one for you."
Oh, man.
And Ashley's like, "You're so immature." And it's like, it's so funny because like some things just don't change, right? Like, and obviously there's a fine line to all of this, right? But I thought you'd get a kick out of that one. Yeah, it was that was pretty good. So, hey, I wanted to talk about this bike experience this morning and this idea of like self-limiting doubts. I know that I started off the podcast a little bit more joking because I thought it was great.
Why not?
Why not? But in regards to the self-limiting doubts, we put out a challenge on the podcast. This was one of the home team episodes where it was a max meters on a C2 bike in 10 minutes. That was the challenge. And I actually created the challenge, full disclosure. And I love the C2 bike. I think it's a great option. I think the air bikes are great too, but C2 bike's just different. It hits different. So I went out and did it as part of the challenge, and I got 20, like, I don't know, it was like 2,600, 2,500, 20, whatever it was.
No. 5,500.
Oh, 5,500. Yeah. 5,500. And then MDV tells his score, he got like 5,000, like he got like 100 more meters than me. I'm like, no way. And then Gabe does it and he gets like another 100 meters ahead of MDV and I. So he's like at 5,700 or so. And then, so it made me think to myself, and this is something I think all of us can reflect on, is how much are you self-limiting in what you think you're physically capable of? And then all of a sudden, someone shows you you're wrong, and then you're able to do it. And it's like how the 4-minute mile was broken as an example. Everybody just thought it was like it was like a ceiling, dude, like you can't do it. Then all of a sudden, one guy does it, and then 7 more people do it that year. And the example I was using is that when I got the 5,600, whatever it was, like, dude, I was working hard. I thought that was at the limit of my ability until I saw peers of mine do better. And it opened my eyes that was a self-limiting doubt that I had in myself. So this morning, I'm like, bro, I'm getting 6,000. I didn't get 6,000, but I got 5,820 or something like that. And it was hard. It hurt. My plan was to do 58. My plan was to beat Gabe, which I did. And then I was going to go do the Train Hard Daily this morning. That was my plan. Dude, I got done with the 10 minutes. I couldn't feel my legs. I could not finish the Train Hard Daily. I said, hey, I'll get that in later today because my legs were so like filled with blood from that. But again, just to summarize where I'm going with this long-winded is that all of us have self-limiting doubts on a bunch of stuff. And when you see other people around you do something, it inspires you to go do it. But how often do you not have other people around you to push you, and you have to remind yourself that maybe you're limiting your own ability? Like, hey, I don't believe I could wake up early. I don't believe I could do this. I don't believe I could do that. Well, dude, you got to push through that self-limiting doubt because you can do it. That's it.
Dude, the limits of like human performance is something that I'm so fascinated about lately. And there's so many like amazing examples of this.
Oh yeah, that book you were talking about.
You mentioned the 4-minute mile, but like it was supposed to be impossible to climb Everest without oxygen until somebody did it. And now like, hundreds of people have done it. Like it was by, the smartest scientists at the time. It was like, no, like the calculation of the altitude and the effort taken and like the amount of oxygen you need, it is impossible to reach that summit without having oxygen tanks. And people got into some really sketchy situations trying. It took a lot of attempts, but literally as soon as, and I forget the names, but as soon as like the first duo did it, it just automatically became something that people could match. And the 4-minute mile is a really well-known example of that. Another thing that, science says like it's impossible, humans cannot go that fast for that long, so on and so forth, breaks the 4-minute mile. And now it's been something that, is actually pretty regular. So the whole kind of like encompassing idea behind that is I don't think any of us realize like what our actual physical limits are. And so much of it is dictated by our psychological beliefs, whether it's the belief that we can't do something or equally as powerful, the belief that like we absolutely can do something. And it is so interesting. There are so many examples that I play around with now in my training, simple things, even as much as like, I'll be doing a set of bench press and I get 8 reps the first set. And then second set, I want to make sure that I match 8 reps. And one thing that I did recently, and it's funny, dude, like I swear this stuff works. Even though I'm the one tricking myself, I'll count a rep extra early on in my mind. So I'll be going and I'll go like 1, 2, and then I'll go 2 again, and 3, 4, 5. And I literally will eke out 8 reps that I'm counting because I'm so in the moment. But then afterwards, I'm like, I did 9. I did 1 extra, you know?
Wait, so
I'll count a number twice.
Oh, you'll count like 2, 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'll do 2 reps at the same number. And dude,
I haven't heard of that technique before.
I am telling you, dude, we have so much left in the tank physically that we don't even realize. And it's a muscle that you have to flex like everything else to try and like get actually closer and closer to like what that actual limit is. And also just understanding that, like, to be honest, only like the top like 0.01% of athletes out there are even getting remotely close to that. Like you today, you probably felt like, you know, dude, I couldn't have done 100 more meters. I couldn't have done 200. Like, you know, you put yourself now, same fitness level, same everything, back at Carson, you know, event, whatever of the CrossFit Games, and that's what you're doing. Dude, who knows? You're getting like 6,300 meters. Yeah. You're getting 6,400 meters. Like a crazy number that like this morning in your garage, like, you know, where the stakes weren't as high, maybe it would have felt impossible. Like you just said, I couldn't even do the workout after because I literally gave it my all. It's actually really impressive that like, that might be like 70%, 80%. You know, if you change the circumstances a little bit, your mindset, all of that stuff. It's really fascinating, man. It's really, really interesting.
Well, the circumstances play a big role, and the psychology there is fascinating to me.
Dude, it is.
Especially the ladders. So where I found at the CrossFit Games, the ladders were always like the best. I don't know why. The way the ladders work from a psychological
like barbell
perspective.
ones?
Yeah. The psychological benefit of being like, all right, I'm gonna see where my competitors stack at, because in general, whenever we had ladders come up to games, in general, I experienced it later in the heats. It's just the way it stacked up for me, that in general, I performed pretty well at the games. So in general, I was at the last heat. So in general, I got to watch everybody else ahead of me go do things. And so it started to reduce this kind of like self-limiting doubt. Like you would watch someone, I'll never forget, at the 2009 CrossFit Games, that was a long ass time ago. They had a deadlift ladder. And at the time, this is a long time ago, they had it end at like 505 or something like that. And I had never pulled 505, but I just remember watching person after person. I mean, not a bunch of people, but there was like 4 people that pulled it. And so it made me realize, hey, if they could do it, I could do it. And it just like changed the whole psychology of it. And I ended up pulling it, which was like at the time, like a 30-pound PR. And so what happens in between the years? It's not like I got stronger, right? It just something connects. And that happened again and again at the CrossFit Games, right? And you could also say, hey, the stadium, the energy, the money, the this or that. I mean, there's so many factors that come into play in competition, you know? Plus you worked for it, you know? Like you worked to peak at that point.
But at the end of the day, right, like the circumstances impact your mindset behind it. And it's really your mindset that unlocks something extra about your physiological state to give you that extra push. And that to me is the most fascinating thing, because we've all had times where we like finish some sort of test, some sort of workout, and we're like, I couldn't have squeezed out another rep, another meter, another calorie. And for me, it's been really powerful with my training to just understand that that's just not true. Like it just isn't. No matter how hard you think you tried, no matter how much you think you redlined, there was something left in the tank. And that to me is just a nice way of like, you know, like being able to push a little harder. Another really good example of this is like, you always know that you have a kick at the end of every workout. You have a kick. Yeah. Everyone has a kick. You're 30 seconds left in that test and you were able to push the pace a little bit more. And that is a really interesting, no matter how hard you've worked to get to that point, knowing that it's about to end, like unlocks something in your mind where you can just like, you know, ramp it up just a little bit because you know it's about to be over. And that's just purely psychological too. Yeah.
There's something to that as well. It's just, I think it goes back to this whole idea of like, what, if you're listening to this right now, like, what are you in yourself limiting when you think about your ability to do something? And the example would be, I guess, like, I mean, the example on the bike this morning was really powerful. Like you thought that was where you're at, and then all of a sudden other people do it, and now you go and you finish with 200 meters more. How many times does that happen in your workouts, right? For everybody listening. But then what else are you limiting your belief in, right? Like, oh, I can't get up that early, man. It's just, I can't do that. I can't eat that way. I just can't do that. I can't give up 3 drinks a week. I can't do that. You can't. Right. And then all of a sudden you build that earned confidence and just starts to like really kind of that momentum continues to build on it. So I'd encourage all of us to kind of reflect on that. Something I'm thinking about just after this morning, man. I mean, like, I'm like, shit, where else am I holding back a little bit? But then again, you can only kind of burn the candle so many times. But this morning I wanted to. It was good.
I do think that's a good segue to the no alcohol thing that I wanted to talk about and just dive into a little bit more. Because I think that's, like you mentioned it a little bit just now, but I think that's prime area for self-limiting beliefs with a lot of men and a lot of people in general. I think that, one of the things that I've learned, and again, I've shared this on the podcast before, and me not drinking, it's going to come up on 2 years. It wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't a big like decision, a big like, hey, this is a shift that I'm going to make. It kind of just happened. And the other day when we had Sam Miller, I believe, on the podcast, he mentioned, as someone that's worked with many, many, many clients on nutrition, and I've seen this too with a few of the one-on-one clients I have now, I think the biggest thing that I've noticed, and he mentioned it and kind of articulated beautifully, is that there's something about the thought of how hard it is or how necessary it is or how judgmental people are going to be if you stop drinking, that is much higher than the reality. And at the end of the day, I feel like many people, and this has been something that he said, something that I've seen, and probably something that people listening can relate to, when they do cut it out for an extended period of time, like they realize that it's not as necessary as they made it out to be in the beginning. Like it seems like a very like high bridge to cross. Like, oh man, like, I usually go to happy hour with my friends on Fridays. Like, wine is a big part of date night on Saturday with my wife. Like Sunday, we get together with family. We always drink this. Like, it seems very daunting to take away what is, a component, because you make it seem like it's a very big component of enjoying these experiences, of, what makes up the experience. And I'm not trying to downplay the fact that there is definitely some truth to that to some people, and that's going to be different from person to person. But I think that when you actually go out there, and whether you say you're doing it as part of a challenge or you're doing it as, dry January, there's all these kind of like little moments where there's an opportunity to say, hey, for this reason, I'm just going to cut this out. I think that a lot of people realize that what they painted it to be in their mind of how tough this was going to be, how it was going to be received, how much it was going to detract from all these social experiences, just ends up not like being the case. And then you pair that with the fact that you probably feel better, probably lose some weight, you probably like look better, you get better sleep, like all these other benefits just start happening, that it's not surprising that people don't go back to it or don't feel the need to go back to it to the same degree that it was before. And that to me is what is so important about this being a component of the Train Hard 45 challenge, this being a component of the Train Hard 5 nutrition protocol. It's not that people should never drink again. It's not that people should like be sober, make the decision that I made. Like, absolutely not. There is a way to incorporate true moderation. And I think that it can absolutely be a part of a healthy diet where you look good, you feel good, and you make the most and you're intentional of these like social experiences that many times alcohol is a component of it. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that there's so much good that can happen once you get over this like seemingly impossibly tall hurdle of, I'm going to commit to the next, whether it's 45 days, 60 days, 90 days of cutting this thing out. Like there's so much good that can come out of it. It's almost like the 4 minute mile. But you just have to make the commitment.
It's like the 4 minute mile on yourself, right? Because you put it on this pedestal. And then all of a sudden when you cut it out, you realize and I've experienced this myself, right? Like I just recently, beginning of the year, I took it out for 8 weeks. And then, and you're right. I think what it does though, Gabe, is like, so one is that you realize it's not as big of a deal to other people and yourself as maybe you thought. That's a big learning lesson. And two is when you start to reintroduce it, or when you take it out or whatever, like you start realizing that there's a lot of opportunities throughout the week or the month that it's just like, And then there's opportunity, and then there's times you're like, yes. Like that's the biggest shift for me is like, so for example, if you say like, I don't know, 45 days you're not going to drink, and you go over to a buddy's house and you're just over there for like an hour, and you know, you might normally have had a couple of beers, but in this case, you're like, it's not, whatever, it's no big deal. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do that. But then in other times, right, you'd realize, damn, I really wish I could experience this with them. I wish that I could have a glass of wine here. During the 45 days, I think you'll learn those moments, the ones where like, you're like, oh yeah, I don't even think about it. I don't miss it. And then there's other moments where like, I wish I could participate in this. And what you'll realize that the moments of like, oh, I wish I could participate in this is actually less than your overall previous consumption. Does that make sense? Like, and
100%.
Those are the times that when you reintroduce it, you're looking forward to. At least I'm just speaking from my experience.
For sure. It's all there's, you know, it's just weighing the cons of when you do it, what's it going to impact, and just the other goals that you have. There's kind of two things. One thing I wanted to bring up is this really cool story. So I work with a small handful of guys one-on-one with nutrition and fitness. And this one guy, man, this story just has fired me up so much. Like one of the coolest wins that I've had with these guys that I work with. So he was going on a week-long work trip. And one of the things that was just common when he goes back to, I think it's where he went to college or where he grew up, but when he goes back is that he tries to reconnect with his old, you know, college buddies. And a big thing that they do is they go to happy hour, have a couple beers. Like that's how guys bond. But we're working together. We have very specific goals. He's working on like cutting back weight, body composition stuff. So we talked about it and he was like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use that time because he's traveling for work. So he's working all day. I'm going to use that time. I'm going to let them know, hey, I'm not doing happy hour. And, you know, like use me as an excuse. Like, hey, I'm working with this coach. So, you know, this is my plan. And use that time to get his workout in. And then it was like, but let's meet up after and do something active. Let's, you know, go play pickleball. Let's go hit the driving range. And those are the things that he did. And I asked him, you know, when he came back, because it was awesome. He went on this week of travel and actually lost a little bit weight on that week where we were talking about it. We were like, hey, you know, if weight goes up a little bit this week, not a big deal. Travel's tough. You're not going to be able to work out. You're obviously, you know, not in the routine of home. And I asked him afterwards because he told me this and I was super pumped. I was like, did you feel like you missed out on anything, you know, on reconnecting with your buddies, on how you reconnected? And he was like, no, like, I feel like I got exactly the same level of like, you know, seeing them, talking with them, enjoying time with them. I think that they appreciated the fact that I recommended us doing something active that, you know, we all genuinely enjoyed. Like we went to go play pickleball or we hit the driving range and hit some golf balls, and drinking didn't have to be a part of it at all. And he came back from a long week of travel, felt better, lost a little bit of weight, not only stayed on track towards his goals, but we actually made progress that week. And for me, that was just such a cool, like real life example, because we went into it expecting, hey, every time I travel for work for these weeks, it ends up being like, you know, it kind of derails my progress a little bit, right? Like don't get to work out as much. I'm meeting up with these friends. You're doing happy hour a couple times a week. Like it's something that like, man, I'm taking all these steps forward, and then you take a step back. But the biggest part of it was when I asked him when we were talking about it, like, did you feel like you missed out on anything? And it was a very honest, like, no. And I don't think that story is that much of an exception. I don't think that it's rare at all. And I think that that's what I challenge guys listening that maybe like saw our challenge go up and were like, man, I'm bought in on everything, but 45 days of no alcohol, like that sounds really tough. Like, I think that you're missing out on an opportunity to really have an eye-opening moment of how necessary this stuff is in these moments where you've just come to believe that like, but these are my college friends that I see like once or twice a year. And the thing we always do is go to happy hour. And like, that's how we reconnect and all this good happens. Like, I don't know, like, is there an alternative? And could you potentially like get exactly the same good out of it? Plus all these other benefits of just coming back from a trip feeling amazing. I mean, the proof's in the pudding. Happened to this guy. And I don't think that he's in any way like super unique. I think that it's just, you know, we had a plan, we stuck to it, and it was really cool. And I hope that other people can see that, because I think that that's the magic that can happen if you stay committed to something like that in moments where you were like, but this is what I always do.
Yeah. So the 45, the TH45 challenge starts May 1st. And
yeah, so we're in it right now.
We're in it.
When this comes out. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I hope everybody who's listening right now is in it. And just because I want to regurgitate a little bit of the challenge. You know, the heartbeat of it is to wake early, train hard, prioritize protein, and remove alcohol. That's like the heartbeat. And I don't even know. I've never even used that term before. I don't know why I use that term right now. But the reason why I think this is so powerful is that if you could get in your training and then get in 50 grams of protein by 9 a.m., right? Which is not that early. I mean, that's not like, we're not saying get it in by 5 a.m. And that's obnoxious. Come on.
It basically just means prioritize protein with your breakfast. Basically. That's
it. Prioritize protein with your breakfast and get in a workout before your day starts is the goal. Now, granted, there's always nuance to this. If someone is on shift work, if someone is on patrol, we totally get it. Just get it in when you can prior to your obligations for the day is the way that I like to look at it, is because that's your time. And then all of a sudden it becomes other people's times as soon as everything else goes on. But I think it's so important as part of this challenge to reflect on like, why that matters so much. Dude, think about, you stack wins, you build discipline early in the morning, and you jumpstart your day with a good meal so you're not eating like crap later in the day. And that's been huge. It's been a huge benefit for me personally. Like earlier today, I had eggs and bacon. I had a solid amount, and I don't find myself just instantly going into the pantry, just trying to find whatever I could find. I could be more calculated with what I eat. And like I've talked about here, I don't know if we're calling it something, but I do the ground beef and rice with a little bit of bone broth, and Ashley makes it, or I make it. Pretty much Ashley does almost all the cooking. And I just have access to it every single meal. So if I don't have time or whatever, boom, I bust that out. Might even pan fry it, good to go. But I'm telling you guys, if you have not started the challenge, jump on it with us. Train in the morning, prioritize the protein, and remove the alcohol for 45 days. And just you start evaluating, hey, where do I want to reintroduce it at? Because there's moments that are going to come up where you're like, damn, I really want it right now. And there's other moments where normally you would have just been like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. But those aren't the ones you're going to get back to in the future. That's what I've recognized in myself.
And don't forget about the burpees, 45 burpees first thing in the morning. You know, the reason that we included that was for exactly the reason you were talking about before. Like, I know some people, it might not be feasible to get your training session in to start the day, you know, whether it's time, whether it's, you know, shift work, whether it's whatever. But there's zero reason you can't do what probably is 5 to 7 minutes, you know, max worth of burpees. If it's taking you longer than 7 minutes, I would definitely adjust the number. You know, that's perfectly fine, but it's meant to be like a 5 to 7 minute little dose of movement. Doesn't have to be RPE 10. Like you're just checking off a box of moving and doing something and getting a win. Because worst case scenario, if that day like completely goes to shit and you can't get your training in, even though you like were 100% like, today was a day I wanted to get training in, you did something. And yes, 45 burpees might seem insignificant, but it isn't. And here's just some interesting math that I did that hopefully can hammer home like just how powerful, how incredibly powerful, like the very basic non-negotiables of the challenge can be. So, I mean, I think a safe assumption to make, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I know that you're, you know, around a lot of social circles where, you know, like drinking is just something that like, you know, the average person does. If you're someone that say has 1 to 3 beers over the weekend, maybe you have 1 or 2 cocktails at dinner at some point in the weekend and 2 glasses of wine. So we're talking 7 drinks total for the week. That's it. Broken up in exactly that way. 2 cocktails, maybe you have 1 with dinner on Saturday, 1 with dinner on Sunday, maybe you have 2 with dinner, 2 glasses of wine, and 3 beers. Like that's all you're having, and you're going from that to cutting it out. So just that's my hypothetical. And then we're adding just the 45 burpees a day. So we're not even counting like you're doing any of the train hard workouts, any of the awesome training in flex and TH daily. If you just go from that average alcohol intake and 45 burpees for, again, like the average body weight person, these are all going to be approximates, you save 1,500 calories per week, which it takes 3,500 calories to burn a pound of fat. So if you don't change anything else, you do the exact same diet, you work out the exact same amount, like you're changing nothing else. All you do is cut out alcohol and do 45 burpees in the morning. Throughout the course of the 6 weeks, you'll lose 2.5 pounds of fat. That's it. You don't change anything else. And that's
Wait,
based off of,
did you add in the caloric benefit from doing the 45 burpees? Is that what you said?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is minor, very minor, but it just means that consistently you're doing something. The huge number here is how many calories you're saving. I think that one thing that people also don't realize is how many calories are in alcohol. So obviously there are the ways that impacts your sleep, your recovery. I think honestly the biggest thing, if you have a specific body composition goal that alcohol doesn't help you with, is that like, dude, once those inhibitions go down, like you're more likely to snack on food, you're more likely to like overeat. I think that that's actually like the bigger impact it has. But if you're just saying, hey, how many calories am I saving by not having, these drinks that I think people don't realize how high they are calorically, and they're not giving you any nutrients, they're not necessarily giving you any energy, like you can make an argument about like cutting out certain carbs, processed foods, whatever. Like alcohol has zero benefit, obviously there's the intangibles of like, social situations and all that stuff, but people don't realize how many calories they can save. And that alone will get you so much of what potentially is your goal throughout the 6 weeks if you stay consistent. I just think that for anyone that is listening and just like feels like they've been at a plateau, like that to me is like the most black and white way of saying like, oh, like this might be worth doing for an extended period of time.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard for sure.
Yeah, man. And progress is hard, dude. And you know what I was thinking about today while I was working out? This is the last thing that I have on this, but you'll appreciate this because to me, the analogy here, and you tell this story all the time, man, it's like these challenges are an opportunity to break the band against yourself.
Yeah.
Like you talk about all the time, man, like when you're in a race and you're running with a group of 3 guys, you can be the guy that just pushes the pace just a little bit and just enough to break the band between you and the rest of the people to where they're no longer worried about trying to keep up with you. They're like, oh man, like Jason pulled ahead. I'm toast. I'm just worried about this other guy next to me and the race behind me. You broke that band. And that could be mentally like one of the biggest wins in a foot race because you just psychologically break that person. They're not even trying to keep up with you. Yep. And to me, the analogy that I was thinking about while I was working out today is like, man, when you do these challenges, there's a version of ourself that we are trying to be better than, right? And I think that like, yes, what you do over the next 45 days might not be sustainable and it might not be what you do forever. It shouldn't be, right? Like you're cutting out certain things. You're being very strict. You're not going to do 45 burpees a day for the rest of your life. But what you are doing is you're taking that sprint, you're breaking the band to the previous version of yourself. And then you can go back to a different level of moderation, but now you've pulled away. You're the better Gabe. You're the better Jason. You're the better version of yourself that can show up for your wife, for your kids. And it's because you took that little sprint, that 45-day, like really tighten things up to just show up better, look better, feel better. And then you can kind of like ease back into your pace, ease back into moderation. But now like you left the other guy behind. Like that's it. There's no more going back to that version of yourself. And that I think is a really visually appealing way to look at this and look at these challenges, because I get the argument of, well, this is super strict. I'm not going to do this forever. So what's the point? The point is to like, take 10 big steps ahead and then like settle back in. But like, man, it's so cool to just be able to make progress, real meaningful progress over 45 days. And I think we laid it out with some really simple habits to do so.
So if you didn't join the challenge already, which, Gabe, I think we probably could have talked about it even more and more on the podcast, but nonetheless, right? Check out the podcast show notes, right? Visit th.fit.
Join the challenge is still 100% accessible for anyone that joins the app now, for sure.
Yeah. That's what I mean. So visit our podcast show notes, go to th.fit, and you can get access to the same information that everybody else has, regardless of when you start. 10 days, 30 days, 45 days is better than no days. And so check out the podcast show notes because, we've talked about the app a lot on this show, whether we're on the home team episodes. Well, we typically don't talk about it where we have the guests on, but it is our tool and our resource to make a bigger impact, and it's working. And so if you're not on there already, you're really, really, really missing out on a valuable tool that I think can help you get from wherever you're at to where you want to go to, because you have a community of like-minded people who want to get after it with you. I saw that picture on the community tab. Was it David? I think it was David that put up a picture. So powerful, man. He put up a picture and he even wrote on there saying, hey, I basically, I debated about putting this picture up. I really debated. And because, you know, he wants to see some weight loss goals. But man, you should have seen like the community rallied around it and supported him because, dude, he's putting himself out there and saying, hey, this is my before, but I'm fired up to show you my after. And I think that if you want a community of like-minded people who are just fired up to watch you win, there's no bullshit, there's no drama, there's none of that. It's just nothing but a bunch of people who want to watch each other thrive. That's what the community is. So check out the th.fit, check out the podcast show notes.
Dude, nothing but positivity in there.
There's no bullshit, right?
And I've mentioned this every Friday, because every Friday I post my progress picture in there. And there's a bunch of people that do. And I always want to remind people that like, it's not just posting it there because you're like super pumped about the work you've put in and the results you've gotten from that. That is awesome. And I love that people do that. But man, there's just so much power. And I freaking love every time someone puts something up there and it's like, hey, like, honestly, I didn't even want to put this up here, but like, you're doing it because you want to be held accountable. And like, that's what that crew is there for. And then the comments on those pictures are always like, dude, super positive, like, hell yeah, let's go. Yeah. Like, you have people rooting for you in that app. And dude, and I'll be completely honest. I was the most, out of our team, probably the most skeptical that a community tab in an app could have the type of impact.
You should have seen the debates that Gabe and I were having on the back end. We almost got into a arm wrestling fight over this. Yeah, go ahead.
But dude, I mean, it's been awesome to see, you know, and it's only going to be more powerful the more people that are in there, the more people that are sharing. So not only if you're not on the app, you should get in there. If you are on the app and you've like debated, you know, maybe you've typed something out, you've like gotten ready to upload something and then you're like, like, I don't want to do it. Like, please share. Just share, like put it up there. I mean, selfishly fires us up so much, but I think that there's so much good to like putting yourself out there a little bit and then getting all the support from the team in there. Because again, all the comments are super positive, whether it's you have a question, you want to share your progress picture, whatever it is, highly encourage you to do it. I think that there's so much good happening in there and it's been really, really cool to see.
It does make me feel heavy though, when I see like some of the guys' weights. I've realized like, cause I don't think I'm a very heavy guy. Like, I don't think I'm that big, but when I put up 218 last week, I was like, oh, I'm pretty big. Like,
I'll share this because you shared it when you shared your picture. You said you're not happy with where you're at.
Yeah, I'm not. I think I want to, but I'm debating if I want to be bigger. I'm debating if I want to be like 225 But I think I'm gonna be less athletic. I think I'm gonna be less mobile. And so I don't really want, but no, I could lean out. I've been wanting to lean out, but I think I'm gonna actually like try. I think I'm gonna try.
Dude, the alcohol. That's it. It's the only change that could make a huge difference.
I did 2 months in the beginning of the year and I've taken, I think that I'm not far off from where I want, but I could probably be leaner. But I like how athletic I am right now. You know what I mean?
I think it is one of those things where, to me, it also just comes back to, if you were like, dude, I'm super pumped with where I'm at, that's awesome. I mean, like, this should only be like individual to every person. Like, I think that it's very important to also like, especially us, like, that make up the home team and like, you know, we're in the fitness and like, there's no body fat percentage, there's no like level of jackness, whatever you want to call it, that like people should be aiming to. Like, that's not my goal, and I hope that I don't put that out. You should just be super pumped with how you feel and how you look. And that's going to be different for everyone, but that's my goal. My goal is for you to, you know, whether it's you take your shirt off come summertime or you know, take your progress picture, like I just want guys to be incredibly confident and pumped about how they feel and how they look. That being said, if you're honestly like, dude, I'm not happy with where I'm at, then it's like, all right, what are you doing about it? You know, because what I think is unacceptable is a harsh word, but what doesn't make sense to me, and I would definitely push back on you, is I'm not happy with where I'm at. And I'm also not willing to change things to make that improvement. That to me is like,
well, I think
that doesn't
you run
make
into
sense.
this idea of
that's
like,
unacceptable.
I think you run into this thing of like, at least in my particular case, it's not a zero sum. Like, I'll give you an example.
But that to me screams settling. It's either you're super fired up about how you feel and how you look, or you're not.
Well,
you know?
in my particular case, I feel like, so for the record, I think if most people saw my body fat percentage and my blood work and my physique, they'd probably be like, Jason, what are you even talking about right now? But each person has their own individual goals, right? And right.
But even on that note, though, like, I'm sure that people would see my progress picture and the fact that I am still trying to get as jacked as possible and be like, Gabe, what are you talking about? But like, that's what I want. That's literally what I want. Yeah. I like have set this goal to like, as our family grows and I'm a dad for more and more years, I want to be able to look back to when we had 1 kid, when we had 2 kids, hopefully when we have more kids, and like see myself get like significantly more jacked every single time. That's just my goal. And again, that doesn't have to be everyone else's goal, but that is my goal. And I'm doing everything in my power to make that happen. What again, I would look at myself and call myself out on is if I literally said on a podcast, hey, that's my goal, and I'm like really passionate about it and not be doing the things to get me there. That I would be like, then what the fuck are you doing? You know?
Yeah. I think in my mind, I have to identify better the goals because sometimes they conflict with each other, right? So for example, if I'm trying to go win jiu-jitsu tournaments this year, if that's my goal, right? Then I need to make sure that I'm mobile. I need to make sure that I'm the appropriate weight. I need to make sure that I'm athletic enough to go win these jiu-jitsu tournaments. And at what point, it's just a balancing act. I had the same thing happen with CrossFit, right? When I was competing in CrossFit, I wasn't looking for aesthetics, because if I was looking for aesthetics, it would encourage me to go one direction. I was looking for performance. And so for me, I need to decide, hey, what route am I trying to play? Do I want to lean out? If I do lean out, will I have the energy to go perform on the mats? I think I still can. I think I could still get to where I want to be. It's just tightening the ship a little bit, tightening up just a little bit here and there.
Would you say that you were your leanest when you were the most focused on performance though? I just think back of that picture of you at the games.
I was probably the leanest when, well, yeah, sure. Yes. But I think I could have been way leaner. I think I could, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like
if you're talking about like, yeah. I get that.
I was CrossFit lean, not bodybuilding lean, you know, and there's a huge difference between those two. I mean, one,
sure.
Huge. But yeah, nonetheless, the point being is that I agree with Gabe. It really comes down to you being comfortable. And if you're comfortable with where you're at, dude, hell yeah, then stay that way. And if you are comfortable, but you still want a little bit more, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm comfortable. I feel good, but I still want to dial it up a little bit. And I think I'm going to be, by keeping these progress photos each week, that's holding myself accountable.
For sure. Man, I mean, even for me, that like, you know, I would say that I've been pretty locked in on like a specific direction and goal that I have for my body composition. Just the fact that now I've committed to posting these every Friday, dude, it's like Dennis when he signed up for a competition. It just immediate, like you think you're lasered in, and then all of a sudden you're sharing this with other people and it just goes.
Yeah, I do need to decide, and I think a lot of people who are sharing need to decide, like, I want to continue the same picture. You've done a good job doing the same picture. I need to just figure out what is the picture I want to do. So
yeah, consistency is the most important
because
thing.
Obviously if you're flexed in certain lighting, it's much different than not flexed and whatnot. So that's something I'm thinking about right now. But anyway, go check out the app.
Want to talk about Snapchat really quick?
Oh my God, Snapchat, dude.
So this was just, it was an interesting post that I saw, and I'm curious if you've run into this at all. I mean, this stuff is kind of a little bit more, relevant to you and the age of Ava and Kaden. Oh, yeah. Something that I think about, but, you know, luckily still have a lot of time to kind of figure this stuff out. And who knows what the Snapchat of 10 years from now it's going to be. It's probably going to be something crazy. But the post that I saw specifically, and this was just something that I hadn't seen before. Like we always talk about like kids and social media and like the comparison game of it, the, you know, potentially dangerous people in there, like side of it, the, just addiction to their phones, not living like life in real life. Like I feel like we've talked a lot about like those pitfalls of social media with kids, but this specific angle was talking about how like, especially with young kids whose brain hasn't fully developed, they don't have that much of a good grasp on what they say and do and share, the potential consequences of that, it pointed how dangerous it is that there's this like false sense of security that when you send things through Snapchat, or we were talking about before, like on Instagram, you put Vanish mode on now, that those messages are truly disappearing, right? Like you can send something and like no one's ever going to find it. No one's ever going to see it.
So what do you think happens to it though? Because like I was thinking about it, and I accidentally have swiped up on some DMs that I get, and I instantly like, I don't want it to be in vanishing mode. I want people to think I'm doing some weird stuff, you know?
So even Liz, like producer Liz brought up before that, like when she was in high school, there was an app, and I didn't even know about this, but there was an app that everyone in high school,
that was like a couple of years
her high school had, that immediately saved Snapchats without you knowing. And it was just an app that you got on your phone. You signed up through Snapchat through it, and it would, without you knowing, save people's Snapchats that they sent to you. And I didn't even know that, but that's what was at the heart of the post that I saw, is that like, there is no such thing, regardless of what app you're on and Vanish mode or Snapchat, where something that you send is going away. Like it isn't. And I think that
you get notified if they screenshot it, right?
Yes, but like there's got to be apps that can circumvent that. Like, and kids are much smarter than like this honestly is one of those things where like you probably don't even know some of the stuff that like potentially your kids know and how to get around some stuff. And that's like super common, and it's going to be tough for us as parents to like stay on top of all that. So the whole heart of it was, it's really, really dangerous for kids who still don't understand like what potential consequences are for things that they share and things that they say, to be putting stuff out with this like just patently false belief that that thing is going to disappear and never potentially come back to haunt them. And like we need to protect our kids from that, because they're too young to like make smart decisions on their own. Like they don't understand that if they send a certain picture or a certain message, just because they think that it's like, well, it's going to no one's ever going to be able to see, hey, you sent this to this person. Like that's actually not true. Like, dude, very much they're going to be able to find.
And there could be big consequences of that.
Huge,
like, I know a girl
that life-changing, life-altering.
Last year we know someone. I mean, I know someone through the grapevine who got kicked out of high school for a very similar situation because of some, racial type stuff, right? Where, and in this particular case, it was really bad. It was like a group photo, and somehow someone took a sign that was like very racial and put it in front of one of the people, and it made it look like, anyways, there was a bunch of stories that went around, but nonetheless, there was a racial slur, very negative, that was in front of this person in a picture. According to them, they don't know how it got there. Like it was like a sign, like a signpost that had a racial slur on it, and there was a picture, and it circulated, and that person ended up getting asked to leave the school. And it's situations like that. I mean, I know that's not the exact same thing we're talking about, but the point I'm trying to make is like, you got to be so sensitive, and you have to be so aware as a parent of talking to our kids about these things, because dude, it takes one picture. It takes one notification. It takes one stupid comment that you think is going to be deleted that could ruin somebody's, high school, college, whatever it might be. It could be a big deal, especially like racial type stuff, obviously.
For sure. Especially now in a time where
shouldn't be saying at all.
But kids really don't understand. And especially in a time where future employers or just future people or even just future people that honestly want to ruin your life or have malintent on you, there's ways to dig stuff up and portray you in a way that's completely unfair. When you did something when you were so young that should you be held accountable for in the future? I mean, that's a whole other topic, but I think that it's so important, because I know I said and did some things that I definitely wasn't proud of as a kid. I was a little bit of a bully in elementary school and early high school. Now imagine if those things were memorialized on the internet, right? For forever. Versus in our time where you probably said something to someone that you are not proud of. You probably did something to someone that you're not super, super proud of. Imagine that stuff just now it's forever lives as a screenshot that, is associated with you, regardless of if it's 20 years from now, and you're a completely different person. You've learned lessons, you've matured, you were just young and stupid. That's, I think, the world that we're now raising our kids in. And it's just important
they're more aware
to try our best to stay.
I think they are. Like, let me give you an example. I look back in high school, and we had like a high school video that was created, like with a old school camcorder. We did some stupid shit. Like, I mean, really stupid stuff. Like just really dumb stuff. But I think kids nowadays, they have to be more aware. Like they have to be, right? Like you can't be at a high school party and doing some really stupid stuff and not expected to be on camera, right?
I mean, yes, but I think that as much as
I know their brains aren't as whatever. It's like, I'll give you a perfect example. If you and I right now, we go to a grocery store and we start doing something stupid, right? Back in the day, we would just whatever. But nowadays, we know for a fact somewhere it's going to be filmed, right? Yeah. So don't you think they're more aware of that too? They have to be.
But those, like, to me, those things are apples and oranges, and that like we have fully developed brains and like understand these things and can think logically. Again, I'm not trying to remove the accountability from kids at a certain age, and we should be imparting those lessons, but like kids are dumb. Like they just are in many ways, or can't see step 2, 3, and 4 of like these actions in many ways. And I think that, again, you know, if they go out and just do something that is problematic, reprehensible, there should obviously be consequences. I think that like the heart of what hit me about this post was they're being lied to, that like, hey, no one's ever going to see this. That's where I think it's tricky, because I think that they would act differently if they were just saying it in a group of people, or just, you know, if they were putting out a video on YouTube or whatever, like doing something that like, hey, this is something that I am saying and that I don't care that other people are going to see. I think the part that makes this concerning is that they're going out there and being like, oh, I'm just sending this to my good friend. No one's ever going to see it, you know, because it disappears because it's Snapchat. And it's like, well, it's not actually the truth.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson there is like, don't say anything to anybody that you wouldn't say to other people, right? Like I mean, and kids need to learn that, and learn that now. I mean, I think about that all the time. For me in particular, like, dude, when I'm out in groups, when I'm anywhere, I just assume that anything I say, anything, is going to be put on the internet and probably maybe taken out of context. I just assume that, and maybe that's just I've been jaded over the years, but that's my assumption. I think the kids should have that same awareness. Like, even if you're messaging your friend, you should be aware that, like, dude, a text message, take a screenshot that, put it somewhere. And let's not even talk about deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's a whole different level. What's that going to look like in the future for kids?
Terrifying.
Right? I mean, imagine if you create an AI text thread between me and Gabe, and I have Gabe say something super derogatory towards me, and I then share that. What happens then?
Yeah, no, dude, for sure.
So what's in your control as a parent, and something I think about, my daughter turns 14 in like 3 days. My son, when this releases, my daughter will be 14, my son will be 11. All I could do is just continue to educate, share, and just try and lead by example, because they're going to make their own decisions, you know, and we just got to let them know that this is what's going on, because otherwise they're not aware of it.
Okay, but like pulling on that thread, like, wouldn't you say that another thing in your control is like carefully auditing the devices and apps that they have access to? Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that's at the heart of this. It's not like the way that you said that was just like, I'm going to educate them, and then like, you know, they're off to the,
we educate, you know, like, for example, we have the bark. Remember, what's her name? Jamie. So Jamie, Jamie recommended bark. So we had another one. We switched over to bark, right? And so, dude, see, you're off the screen. Now you're back on my screen. So we got bark, and that's been helpful, because and that's an education tool though, right? Because you could get it and now you can educate with it.
You like it?
Yeah, so far. I mean, we've been on it since Jamie was on. What was that, like 3 months ago? So yeah, we like it. But it's an education tool, right? So we could see, hey, what's going on? Hey, this is what we're seeing. This is some adjustments we recommend, right? And then we could just continue to monitor the conversations and monitor the apps and stuff. Because the reality is, especially like going into high school, bro, everybody has these platforms like Snapchat, Instagram, whatever. So, and kids actually engage on it. Like, they actually message back and forth on a regular basis. So at least having something like Bark will allow us to like look at what the conversations look like and then educate accordingly. Because it's going to happen no matter what, in my opinion.
What's going to happen no matter what?
The conversation is going to occur on a platform. What platform do you want it to be? And for most people, the reason why Snapchat or TikTok or Instagram became popular, and I don't really relate to this, but well, I guess you can. I don't do this that much, but like I know for Ashley with her friends, dude, they'll share videos all the time on Instagram, just like funny things they see or whatever, right? Same thing happens with kids. They're just sharing random TikToks, they're sharing random stuff, but then within that, it becomes a conversation. Hey, did you see this? And then they start talking about it. So you can't do that over text as much.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Hey, I'll tell you what. Ava's birthday's in like 3 days. And every year I add a round to her workout. So it started off as 1 round of 400-meter run, 21 ground overhead. And then for every year, I add a round. And last year for 13 rounds, I did it with a partnership with Ashley. Her and I split the work. I did a little bit more. This year, I'm going to see if she'll want to do it with me again because, bro, I'm telling you, 14 rounds of that workout will just smoke me. I mean, 400-meter run, 21 ground overhead at 95 pounds. It's just miserable. So I'll have to let you guys know what I end up doing. But that's the workout. And I would recommend for anybody, you know, the whole incentive was like, hey, every year I'm going to try and the motivation is I'm going to stay fit as they get older. I probably could have put more thought into it earlier on. I probably shouldn't have gone with, 400-meter run. Maybe I should have done like 200. Maybe I should have done like a less reps, but I tried to make the rep numbers meaningful, and I wanted to make it hard. But at 14 rounds, dude, I mean, it takes me forever.
How long's forever?
Well, so last time I did it solo was 12 rounds, and that took me okay, so that took me like an hour. So it wasn't forever, but it's a long time. And it's just going to get longer and longer and longer because 95-pound ground overhead starts to add up.
For sure. But it's, it's like your hero workout, man. It's like your thing.
Well, what about when they turn 20, bro? I mean, but in any case, last year, Ashley wanted to do it with me.
When you said it took me a long time, I was like, you're doing this for like 5 hours? Then I would start making some changes.
I think what it was is that just it's a lot of volume at 95 pounds if you don't do that much volume, right? You're talking about a couple of, hundreds of reps of ground overhead. And that's where it gets a little bit toasty. But yeah, hopefully Ashley does with me this year. And, I'll probably do like 8 rounds. She could do 6 and then we'll kind of go from there. It's a fun thing to do together too.
For sure, man. That's a cool thing. You've, it's crazy. It's that many years, huh?
Yeah. So it's the reason why we did 4/21/11 was the birthday. So, April would be, so that's why it's a 400-meter run, 21 reps. And then, 2011, I don't think there is any significance. No. So it's just April 21st. And then she was 9 pounds, 5 ounces. So that's why it's 95 pounds.
Big baby. I was 9 pounds. Big. That's big, man.
There you go. So that's the birthday workout. Add around every year. Take inspiration from that. Figure out how to do it for yourselves. Everybody's different, but that was the inspiration for me. Is like as she got older, I wanted to stay fit, and now we're doing it.
Hell yeah.
All right, Gabe. Well, hey, everybody, we appreciate you guys. I've been seeing more and more reviews. I saw one review on the podcast that came up yesterday, and the guy's like, "Hey, I've been listening to the podcast for years now. I listen to every episode, and finally these guys got me to give a review." And I'm thinking to myself, all right, like it took a couple of years, but we got you, right? And so if you've been listening to the podcast, you're like, dude, these guys, hey, they're trying to put out a positive vibe. They're trying to raise people up. I want to give a review. Do so, please. 2 simple asks, right? Leave a rating, leave a review, and make sure to check out what we're doing on the Train Hard app. That's it. That's all I got. Keep training hard. We'll see you guys again next week.